The title is not clickbait. I really am considering leaving New York. Literally right now, Sam and my job are the only things keeping me in New York. Like, hey y'all, welcome back. Obviously a different vibe. I'm in the car. I'm not in New York. I'm in Houston, and I have my Sonic. You know, I've shot this video like 3 times because I keep having all these technical difficulties. So hopefully this time it actually works. So I had to move real quick because yeah, I had to talk to my brother or whatever, and then I moved. But anyway, so I just want to continue with what I was talking about. The title is not clickbait. I really am considering leaving New York. Long story short, I never envisioned being in New York. Like, y'all probably don't even know this, but New York was kind of like a last option that just kind of worked out. I actually always wanted to come back to Houston. Like, if y'all can't tell, like, I'm in Houston, I'm from Houston, I'm always wearing a Houston shirt. Like, I literally have one on right now. Where's the light go? You know, Houston all the way, like, always thought I was gonna come back. Like, it wasn't even like a thought really, it was just like an assumption. Like, of course, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna go to law school, I'm gonna go back to Houston. Like, I never even thought that deeply about it because I just knew that that's what was gonna happen. So obviously some things changed. So one now I applied for a Houston job, and literally while I'm in the interview, the man literally said to me, like, the man interviewing me was like, hey, you know, I just wanted to tell you that I've read a lot of cover letters, and this is by far one of the best ones I've ever read. And that was unsolicited, not my words, his words. And I'm just leaving the interview feeling very good. Like, okay, I had good interviews. There were only a few spots, so that made me kind of nervous. But here's this man telling me this is one of the best cover letters he's ever read. Didn't get a call back, and of course that was disappointing. Actually, that job interview wasn't in Houston, it was in Dallas. But, you know, I was trying to go back to Texas, basically. So, fast forward to 2L, and somewhere along the way, I also started to consider DC. So, my options were, like, DC or Houston, and New York was, like, honestly still my last option. And it didn't work out. I didn't get any of my Houston offers. I didn't get any Houston callbacks. I had this one interview that went so well, and the man literally said, like, I'm gonna recommend you for a callback, and I still didn't get a callback. So for a while I just kind of thought to myself, like, okay, clearly this is a sign, because I'm applying, I'm doing everything I can, I'm having good cover letters, I'm having good interviews, and I'm still not getting the job. So, like, maybe it's a sign that I'm not supposed to be in Houston. So I ended up choosing New York because I split my summer between New York and DC. I like the New York office a lot better. Sam's in New York, and it was just like, literally right now, Sam and my job are the only things keeping me in New York. Like, point blank period. So now that I'm coming up on a year, it'll be a year in October, mid-October, of working, I'm like, it's a good time to reevaluate. Like, okay, I've been in New York a year. Do I still want to have things change? Do I want to stay in New York? Do I want to leave New York? Do I want to go to DC? Do I want to go to Houston? What's up? And if you've, like, moved cities as an adult, comment down below. Let me know if you have any advice for me for other things to consider. But right now, I'm considering the legal market, obviously, because, you know, I'm a lawyer, and I think that New York is probably the most diverse legal market that I know of. And I get worried that I'm not gonna see this in another city. I'm not gonna see this in Houston. I'm not gonna see this in DC. Even though the numbers are still really, really bad, they're better than other places. Like, let me let this man pass. The legal industry is conservative no matter what. But I think about, like, the types of people I'm around. So in New York, when all the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all those protests were happening, they're still happening, but when they were happening more, the conversation started at my job with, okay, there's an issue, we know there's an issue, what can our role be to address these issues? Whereas my perception, and I don't know, I haven't lived in Houston since I was 18, so I don't really know. I've never been a working woman in Houston. But my perception is that the conversation starts in a different place. Like, I assume that I'll have to be even convincing people that the issue exists. I haven't really had to face that kind of, like, environment on top of a market that's already conservative, super conservative views in the workplace that is probably gonna be prevalent, and like that's something I have to worry about. One of my friends works in Texas, and I remember after the election, she was like, so many of my coworkers are Trump supporters, and like she really struggled with that. So I think about that and stuff. That's something that I wouldn't want to hurt my professional growth. Like right now with my job, I feel very comfortable wearing my natural hair and stuff, and I might, and it's not even to say I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that in Houston, but it's like, would that hurt my progression? Would it hurt my promotion? Which one's more likely to hurt me in the long run? And like I think that being in a conservative, even more conservative market, like those things would affect me even more, affect my career even more. So, you know, something to think about. So with DC, so DC is a tricky one. So let me take y'all back to 2016, 22-year-old Angel looking to move to New York. So I moved to New York. I was super excited. I've been to New York every year for conferences. I seen New York on Instagram. I knew people from New York. I thought it was this flashy place. And y'all, when I got here, when I got to New York, I was so disappointed. Like, I was so lonely. I came to New York by myself. No one helped me move. I moved all by myself. I was just, I had this romanticized version of New York, like vacationing somewhere and weekend tripping somewhere and visiting a friend somewhere is not the same thing as living there. And it maybe sound like common sense to a lot of people, but it wasn't common sense to me. So living there and going through like the day-to-day mundane task and like taking the train and walking everywhere and being in the condensed spaces and yada 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 was not as fun and glamorous as I thought it was gonna be. And I really like struggled with that. And with DC, sometimes I get worried that I'm making the same mistake, because once again, I've never lived in DC. I've only been there weekend trips and then my internship, which was 5 weeks in the summer. So, you know, it's summer, everyone's outside, it's a good time, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't actually know what it's like to live there for real, full time. I guess I can just go, well, okay, so I don't know what it's like to live there full time, full stop. The difference is that, like I said, I did my internship there, so at least it's not just weekends like it was with New York. And I know people who live there full time as adults like me, so I can ask them like the real questions, which I wasn't even thinking to do, you know, when I was moving to New York. But I don't want to make the same mistake twice. I don't want to get there and be super disappointed and have all this romanticized version of DC. But so that's something that worries me about moving there. All that to say, another thing that worries me, or not worries, I like don't want to use the word worries because that's not like indicative of how I'm feeling. It's more so just like things I want to consider before I decide if I'm gonna stay, move, whatever. What was I gonna say? So yeah, that's like my decision making in a nutshell. When it all comes down to it, I really don't want to split up Angel and Sam. Not just like Angel and Sam LLP, the YouTube video, but like Angel and Sam, the friendship. So realistically, I probably wouldn't even be making a move until Sam's making a move, because she is also considering moving places. I don't want to like tell all Sam's business. I'll let her tell you guys when that time comes. And the places that she wants to live and the places I want to live don't really add up. So we probably wouldn't be moving to the same place, but like I'd want to make the move at the same time. I wouldn't want to be in New York without her, and I wouldn't want like to leave her in New York and stuff. That is like a huge factor. But once we are, I think, both like at that point where we're ready to go, then I think that's when I'd probably make my move. All that to say is that don't worry, like I'm not like prematurely gonna split up Angel and Sam LLP, because I don't want to. Beyond trying to find somewhere to live, I mentioned before that Houston was always my plan, and that is something else I've been thinking about. I don't want to like make these plans and then try to force the plan to fit my life when like things have changed and it doesn't fit anymore. So yeah, I had a plan. I always wanted to come back to Houston, or I wanted to go to DC or whatever. But if my feelings have changed and that's not gonna work based on where I am in life anymore, then like I want to be flexible enough to adjust those plans. So, and honestly, y'all might be shocked, but that even considers being a lawyer. If it comes to the point where I don't like being a lawyer anymore, and I just find a different passion, or I'm moving to a city where I think my talents would be better, I guess, in another profession. I used to say like my talents, I feel like LeBron, but you know what I mean. I hope I will be courageous enough to be willing to walk away and be willing to try out something new in life, and not just stick to a plan just for the sake of sticking to a plan. All that said is that I think that once you leave the legal field, it's probably hard to re-enter. Like, it's probably, unless you're in like politics and things like that aside, I think like if I'm ever gonna make that decision to leave law, I'm gonna make sure I really want to make that decision, because it doesn't seem that easy to just like jump back in and out of the legal field. Seems easy to jump around within the legal field, like private to public and things like that, but to like I'm getting so dark. I'm sorry, y'all. It's getting late, so I'm gonna wrap this up. But anyway, all I just want to say is that it seems hard to go from out of the legal field into the legal field. So before I ever made that decision, like, I want to get some years under my belt, and I'd make sure that that's definitely what I want to do. But that's like in the long haul.